It includes Israel pulling out of South Lebanon, according to the Iranians, which I would go by their word right now. But I'll just give an overview to the audience. As always, throughout this war, it starts off terrible, and then sometimes it gets worse, sometimes it gets better. So it started off with, obviously, Israel striking Beirut. Iran was upset. They start threatening to retaliate. Not threatening, planning to retaliate. Trump wakes up, makes a post criticizing Israel, telling them to stop bombing Lebanon, telling also Hezbollah to stop bombing Israel, and then goes on Axios, Channel 12, and Fox News, and just starts attacking, pummeling Netanyahu more than he did before. I can read some of the statements if people have. It's full of curse words. He says, "Why did Bibi have to do a fucking attack? I was so pissed. I let him know. He has no fucking judgment. I let him know that." That's to Fox. Sorry, to Axios. Then he goes to Channel 12. "I spoke with Netanyahu. I told him, what the fuck are you doing? Bibi has no discretion at all." And then does the same thing on Fox. He said, "I told Iran not to respond. If they respond, it's going to fucking ruin everything. I think a deal will be signed in the next 2 to 3 hours." So he just did the rounds criticizing Netanyahu, and then publicly asked Iran not to retaliate. Then Trump and Netanyahu had a call. And then we started hearing rumors about Trump making an offer for Iran so they don't retaliate. Some people said it's worth a few $1 billion. Others have said that he's going to lift the blockade immediately. And latest information we got from Iran is that he gave concessions. So this is it here. Iran forced the US to accept a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon and its borders as an additional concession, so Iran would cancel the retaliation against Israel, according to the Iranians. So I don't know whether that was included before or not. And then it says Iran and Oman will regulate the Strait of Hormuz. Now, for people that don't know, about half an hour ago, we had the Pakistani Prime Minister announce that we have a deal. Trump followed minutes later saying we have a deal. But most importantly, the Iranians announced we have a deal. So it was, according to Fars News, I'm not sure who else mentioned, the Deputy Foreign Minister as well has confirmed the MOU has been finalized, with the official signing ceremony to take place in Switzerland on Friday. He announced that the lifting of the U.S. naval blockade against Iran begins tonight. He also attributed the agreement not only to diplomacy, but also to Iran's military achievements and sacrifices. He declared Iran achieved great victories. Then Fars News reports that it has been decided that the legal framework for navigation of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz will be arranged in cooperation between Iran and Oman. The report also reveals that following the Israeli strike on Dahieh and Beirut, Iran cancelled negotiations and was preparing to strike Israel. I don't know how true that is, but they seem pretty keen on it. However, last-minute concessions from Trump, including guarantees of Lebanon's territorial integrity, an Israeli withdrawal from the Lebanese border, and the immediate lifting of the U.S. naval blockade, persuaded Iran to stand down. And according to the Iranians, the Pakistanis, and Trump, in order of importance, in terms of how important their word is, we have a deal. The state media has announced the Islamic Republic of Iran officially forced the American Zionist enemy to end the war on all fronts, and Iran officials expected to address. Okay, that's before to address the nation. So this is kind of an overview. I know you know it all already, Larry, but just for the audience that wasn't keeping up. And Trump made a post announcing that he has a deal, and he authorized the lifting of the blockade. Yeah, that's it. Your thoughts on what we're seeing right now so far, Larry, for the limited information we have on what the deal is.
What day is today? Yeah, what day is today?
Sunday.
The 14th, right?
14th.
And the deal is going to be signed when?
On the 17th?
19th.
Okay.
Friday. That's 5 days. Already, we've heard Trump, we're lifting the blockade, and then in the same time they announced, however, we're going to continue to intercept Iranian ships carrying any Chinese military equipment. Oh, do you know what that's called? You know what that's called? That's called a blockade. So let's see who does what. Now, it looks like Trump and the administration did go to extra lengths to keep Iran from retaliating, and Israel deliberately launched that attack because they want to blow this agreement up. So it remains to be seen where Trump will stick to his guns and force Israel to withdraw. The United States does have that power. Just a question of whether they'll use it or not. So, here we are. I know that the Iranians believe what they think is the agreement. The Pakistanis believe what they think is the agreement. The United States has its own beliefs about what they think constitutes the agreement. And I don't think they actually agree. I think there are still some areas of disagreement that will only be exposed in the next 5 days. So I'd go as far to say, I don't think they'll get a deal signed on Sunday, would be my guess, or next Friday. I think it'll be torpedoed by then.
My worry is what happens after the deal is signed, because I think the deal is going to be full of ambiguities. So my worry is after this is signed and celebrated, what's going to happen? Because we all celebrated the agreement or the peace deal when it came to Gaza, and look how that's looking. So that's where I'm really worried. On between now and 5 days from now, on the worries you have, just on I'm trying to find out, do you know who said about the blockade of Chinese ships? Trump didn't say it. Do you know who did?
Yeah, hang on here.
Someone else?
Stand by.
Or was it someone claiming he said it?
No, it was.
Because that'll be bizarre. Like, he's desperately saving the deal. So while you're looking at it, I'll ask you the question I have as well. Your worries, what exactly? It will be torpedoed by Israel as we saw today? It will be Trump walking it back?
Can I say yes to both? Trump walking it back, Israel sabotaging, the Zionist lobby, the Mark Levins, all of these pro-Israel podcasters that are influencers, getting paid. They're going to be going nuts. So, and Iran, if, let's say Israel is still launching attacks into Lebanon on Tuesday, then, Iran will finally say, okay, we gave you 2 days. You said you're going to get them out of there. They're not out of there. So we're going to retaliate, and they will. And then, Trump likely will say, oh, the Iranians have violated the agreement that we had, and now it's going to be full on, war again. So the Iranians, clearly the Iranians view this as a victory. They think that they got what they demanded, but
I'll tell you one thing that's bizarre on my side. I'll read out, and this is someone else, an analyst who said this. And I've been thinking the same thing. He says the following: I still find it strange that an Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon is now presented as an additional concession, because that's what the Iranians are saying, because that's a way too big of a concession. Because based on my personal sources, Iran already wanted to add this to the terms last night and even before, but the US did not agree. It was one of the last remaining points still under discussion. So is the foreign ministry implying that they would have signed that MOU anyway without the inclusion of an Israeli withdrawal if it wasn't for the events of Beirut today and the subsequent military threats? In other words, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon is not an additional concession, but rather a demand Iran made even 1 to 2 days ago and was not accepted until now. I firmly believe Iran could have gotten this concession even before issuing military threats against Israel. It likely would have been granted anyway. What would have been done instead is carry out retaliation against Israel and then immediately announce the MOU to prevent Israel's response. But the question he's asking there is Iran is saying that the Israel pulling out of Lebanon, which is an incredible concession, Iran is claiming that the concession was just made. Do you think that the MOU would explicitly include Israel pulling out of Lebanon? I didn't see it in any of there was a gentleman as speaker of the Iranian, not parliament, Security Council. Let me get you the exact name. He's the deputy chairman of the parliament's National Security Commission in Iran. And he was going through all the clauses 2 days ago of the MOU. And when he talked about Lebanon, it talked about cessation and end to the war on all fronts. But he never mentioned, he didn't read the whole thing, so it might have been included somewhere else, Israel pulling out. So my question is, do you think this is actually explicitly included in the MOU? Because that will be difficult to achieve, to say the least. Like, Israel stopping the attacks is already hard to achieve. Pulling out of Lebanon seems almost like mission impossible.
Well, let's go back to the original 14-point paper that Iran presented to the United States on April 8th, I believe. And it was reiterated on April 15th when the United States tried to force Israel into a ceasefire, which temporarily held but then blew up. And I found it was on Powerful Iran, a Telegram channel, Powerful Iran. And it's a translation from Persian. It says, yes, the blockade will be lifted, but the U.S. Navy will continue to inspect Iranian ships to prevent Chinese weapons from reaching them. And Iran, I will guarantee you, will view that as a blockade. But we don't.
Yeah, if that's the case, that's an issue.
And right now, we don't have a signed agreement. We have verbal commitments to have a signing on the 19th. And we yet to see the actual document. What does the actual document say? So until I see a written document spelling out the terms and that both sides say, yeah, we agree to these terms, I think the odds that they actually sign an agreement come Friday is slim.
So the statement came in from Iran's deputy foreign minister. We hope that the negotiations will be concluded in 60 days. If the serious will of the other party will be enough for 60 days, oil crashed to about $80, $81 a barrel. Netanyahu, hold on, what did he say? No, that's according to Mariv. Netanyahu told Trump that Israeli forces will not withdraw from Lebanon and that Israel does not consider itself bound by the Lebanon clause in the US-Iran MOU.
Right. I mean, Israel, you know, again, Bibi Netanyahu's just he's a malevolent blowhard. He will talk tough, but he doesn't have the wherewithal to stand on his own. And if Trump said,
what did you call it? What's the word? What's the word?
Malevolent blowhard.
Got it. I don't use it in my interviews.
Yeah, feel free. You know, as I said at CIA, anything worth doing well is worth copying from someone else.
But that's it shouldn't be surprising because also earlier today, we had the same thing. There was a report that came in a couple of hours ago. I think Wall Street Journal, that Netanyahu told Trump explicitly. So let me try to find it. He told him we're not going to pull out of. Trump asked him to pull out of Lebanon and stop the strikes, and Netanyahu just refused. I'll try to find the source of that, but that was just a couple of hours ago. But there it is, according to Ynet. So this is all Israeli media. So I don't know if they're trying to build a narrative in Israel, Larry, for Trump, for Netanyahu politically. Because remember, in the last ceasefire, Netanyahu was like, we're not bound to it, we're not bound to it. They were bombing Dahya, and then they stopped bombing Dahya. So I'm not sure if it's going to happen again now. But Trump has demanded Netanyahu halt fire in Lebanon and begin a withdrawal of IDF forces. But Netanyahu rejected both demands, according to Ynet, 4 hours ago. And now we have the same report again. So...
yeah, like I said, Netanyahu would try to blow it up, and Trump could just, we've seen him turn on other friends. He's turned on Candace Owens, turned on Tucker Carlson, turned on a whole host of people that were very supportive of him. So he very well could turn on Bibi, and Bibi will get the Tucker Carlson treatment. Not a bright person, not intelligent, that kind of thing.
Do you think that could happen? That's a big question. How far do you think Trump will go or can go to rein in Bibi? If there is that power struggle that does happen, assuming this is not all for show, maybe this is all for show and they already decided something behind the scenes. Who do you think is the power struggle?
Yeah, if right now J.D. Vance is playing to Trump's ego, saying, oh, Mr. President, you have got the deal of the century, maybe the past 2 centuries. You'll go down in history as the maker of peace. So he understands Trump's need for flattery to believe that he's the best. And as long as J.D. Vance can keep that word flowing into Trump's ears, despite Trump catching hell from all of the Zionists, Trump might hold firm. The key point is, if you look at the Iranian channels, they're saying one thing. If you look at the Israeli channels, they're saying complete opposite. So it's just, let's say, let's wait till Wednesday, let's wait till Friday. Then, or I want to first see the written agreement, and then let's see if they are they going to show up together, have the Iranians and the Americans in the same room signing? If that doesn't happen, that's just, it's more of this is just theater without a lot of substance. But, right now what the Iranians are saying is this deal's supposed to go into effect, 2 hours ago at midnight.
And then we see sirens. We see sirens in Kuwait, and then we hear explosions in Bandar Abbas. That's going to become a habit. Just Trump seems very not keen, even desperate for a deal. The way he went on the media yelling and shouting and criticizing Netanyahu to that extent. Again, I know there's always a possibility it can be for show, but I just feel like he's trying everything he can to make sure the deal does happen and he can walk away from Iran. Iran obviously want to walk away from Iran. They want to walk away from the Iran war. The only question is how much influence does Trump have over Netanyahu? I think that is the big question. And if the
I'm sorry to interrupt you, my friend. Sorry. No, okay. I'm a rude old man. Look,
well, you're going to answer the question anyway. So
yeah, Trump has the power to do it. The question is, will he exercise the power he has? That's the right question.
Do you think he will?
No.
Why?
The pressure from the Zionist lobby, the pressure from Republican members of Congress. I mean, Lindsey Graham, my God, he's going to need a diaper change when this is over. He's going to be in complete meltdown territory. And Debbie Adelson, Deborah Adelson.
Not Deborah. Miriam.
Miriam. Oh, she's going to be on the fainting couch. So yeah, Trump's going to have some very unpleasant phone calls.
Do you know what I'm really concerned about, Larry? On top of this is, obviously I've been optimistic, but I'm optimistic about an MOU. I'm not optimistic at all about long-term peace. I think the MOU will include a lot of ambiguities, and the Iranis were complaining about it. The gentleman I mentioned, the Speaker of the Deputy Council, whatever it is, of the Parliament, he was going through the clauses and he was complaining about how ambiguous it was and how vague it was, and that doesn't work in Iran's interests. And right. I'm sure the Americans will complain. It will say the same thing. And I think it's ambiguous and it's vague intentionally. So it doesn't look embarrassing for Trump, and it allows political wiggle room for both sides, for the Iranians to declare victory, but also for Trump to save face. And this wiggle room is what worries me. Add to it the wild card that is Israel. So my biggest concern is this MOU that we're celebrating. We should have learned from Gaza and how these, short one-pager agreements. What was it back then? A 14-point plan for Gaza, and right now Hamas still has weapons. Israel's invading more territory, and Gaza's getting bombed almost daily, and aid is still blocked. So if we look at that alone, there isn't too much room to celebrate. And it's just difficult to imagine, especially before elections, that Netanyahu is going to pull out of Lebanon, not only stop bombing Beirut, not only stop bombing South Lebanon, but pull out of Lebanon. It just sounds very difficult to believe this is like, I'd tip my hat to Trump if something comes out of this.
Well, on the other hand, so let me take another position that may be contrarian. This could give Netanyahu the excuse he needs to get out of Lebanon, because they're getting their ass handed to them. Hezbollah continues to cause and inflict casualties on soldiers and equipment, armored personnel carriers, tanks. Israel, they're in a grinding war of attrition, and Israel cannot sustain a grinding war of attrition. It's too small. Particularly if Trump then backs up his threats by saying, either you do this or we're cutting you off, and it's going to stop tonight. If he says that, it means it. Israel's going to be forced to accede to the demands. Now, but I still think the thing that bothers me is, one, you got 5 days before you sign an MOU. And what is an MOU? An MOU it's not like it's been accepted by the UN Security Council. I mean, and there's a whole nother problem. There are a number of UN sanctions still in place on Iran that we've seen more aggressive actions by the UK and France that they would veto, I think, any effort to lift those sanctions. And, Macron and Starmer, I could see doing that because they see it as a way to screw Trump. They won't miss that opportunity, man. They get to embarrass Donald Trump. They'd love to do that.
Yeah, and the other question is, what would that deal include beyond Lebanon? The Strait of Hormuz. So I'll tell you what the Iranians are saying. According to Farish News, it has been decided that the legal framework for navigation in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz will be arranged in cooperation between Iran and Oman. Now, the Speaker of the Parliament was saying, he was complaining, the Deputy Chairman of the Parliament's National Security Commission in Iran. So he's more on the hardline side of the government, and he was very critical that the MOU was not clear enough in favor of Iran. And one of his biggest complaints was the fee at the Strait of Hormuz was not explicitly stated in there. It was very vague. It was under Iran, not even under Iranian management. It was under the agreement said it was. Let me see the exact word. Commercial ships, arrangement. Some people, the word arrangement, Iranian arrangement. The Strait of Hormuz will operate under Iranian arrangement. And he said this is all that it includes. It doesn't explicitly say Iran will charge a fee. So my worry is, even on that point, there might be disagreement. And that might lead to clashes later on, or disagreements later on, or then the US will keep its blockade. So I don't know how that's going to, but maybe, the hopeful side of me thinks that maybe they kept it vague in tension because Iran is already charging a fee. So vague means the status quo remains. Iran keeps charging a fee and ships can go through. I think Iran can't block ships from going through, but ships have to pay a fee, something along those lines. So it's like legally viable. But I think you'd agree that this is non-negotiable on the Iranian side. The Strait of Hormuz will be under their management.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't backed off that at all. So, and that is it. What we have here is the promise. Hey, we're going to get married on Friday. Did you give me an engagement ring? No, but trust me, we'll have it. Okay. But come Friday, I'm sure there's going to be a happy wedding. But we can always hope.
But I'm more hopeful because even for the first time, the Iranians announced it, Larry. Trump has announced it 39 times. The Iranians have announced it once. But I know your concern is not the Iranians. Your concern is the Americans and the Israelis. So really, the Iranians announcing it doesn't really appease you. It doesn't really address your concern. Well, J.D. Vance is making statements now. But a lot of nothing. Qatari Prime Minister, I'll read out, see what anything interesting. We welcome the agreement reached on the MOU between the US and Iran. We extend our thanks to our brothers in Pakistan, as well as to all regional blah, blah, blah. We reaffirm that the state of Qatar will remain a steadfast supporter of these efforts and all endeavors aimed at strengthening security stability. Okay, nothing there. J.D. Vance, quote, what President Trump has done is created the real space to transform that region cooperation between the Gulf Arab allies and the Israelis. And now hopefully a new era with the Iranians. This is just a great thing for the American people. I know that Americans have suffered from high gas prices. Trump has certainly been very concerned about that fact. But what we're going to be able to do is drive down the cost of energy, not just now, but for the long term, and create a real engine of prosperity in the Middle East where Americans benefit from those lower energy prices, lower gas prices, and we don't have the same risk of chaos that we've had for the last generation. I know this has been a hard time for a lot of Americans, but we have achieved something great for them. If the Iranians comply with this deal, it is going to fundamentally transform the Middle East for the next 50 years. It's going to make the Middle East more investable. This region of the world has been a basket case for my entire life and longer than that. What Trump has really set us to do is to certainly eliminate the nuclear threat of Iran. That's done. I saw a notification, a launch of missiles. Cruise missiles. Like, I'm shocked. I'm like, what's happening? Because that's Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine.
Yeah, I was just going to say, understand that again. That's J.D. Vance spin. You say, hey, Trump, this is big. You've stopped the nukes. Now, compared to the JCPOA, it's a nothing burger.
Oh, incomparables. Yeah, incomparable. I was speaking to Alan Ayer earlier today, who was the negotiator in the JCPOA. That's why I'm telling you, like the MOU itself, we're celebrating just a pause in the war. But I just don't. I think the can will be kicked down the road, and a lot of my guests were telling me that, some people believe the war is inevitable. The question is whether it be in 30 days, 60 days, 12 months, 24 months, 5 years, but the war will remain inevitable because all the same issues. Israel seeing Iran as a threat and continuing to try to weaken Iran. Iran seeing Israel as a threat and trying to continue to counter that threat. And the US, some people believe US wanted to control the Strait of Hormuz. All these issues remain and they haven't changed. So that's why a lot of people still have that concern and waiting for whatever we're up to, round 3, round 4 of the war.
Yeah. Big ifs at this point, because we still, got to ask yourself, why haven't they released the final document that's going to be signed? What's the delay?
The Iranians said they'll release it when it's signed. Actually, one of my guests said, what if it's never released? I asked the question. That's a good point. Maybe because everyone will see that the deal doesn't really include much at all, and they'll see how vague it is. I actually give you some examples. I'll be brief because it'll take a while if I read them all, but I think you'll find it interesting. When you were traveling, the Iran's deputy chairman of the Parliament's National Security Commission did a long presentation on TV. It's probably the most detailed one because he apparently had the agreement in his hand and he was reading through the clauses. It didn't mention about Israel pulling out of Lebanon. It said an end to the war and all military action, immediate and permanent end of military operations. So it doesn't leave the room for the US to claim defensive military operation. The US forces leaving. So this is a big concern he has. Actually, it's a good point there. He says the agreement says according to him, it's not confirmed, but he apparently had it in his hand, that the American forces, the military buildup, has to leave 30 days after the full agreement. So we have 60 days now to sign the full agreement. But that 60 days, number one, is not enough time for an agreement that should take 2 years like the JCPOA. But number two, both sides could delay the 60-day deadline. And the chairman is like, if they keep delaying it, and the American troops will only leave after the 30 days after the agreement is signed, but we keep delaying the agreement, does that mean that the military buildup of the Americans will remain there for months if we keep delaying it? And if that's the case, why they're there? If the war is over, why does the US need to still have that massive military buildup? So that was a big concern of his. He said the military withdrawal of the Americans should have been from the signing of the MOU, which is a very valid point.
No, I agree with him. What we right now is have our promises to act. Well, and we'll see it. Some of them have to be implemented now on the U.S. side. And the big one is, are they actually lifting the blockade? Or is this just sort of political theater where they say they lift the blockade, but in fact, they'll continue to intercept Iranian ships? Well, that's a de facto blockade. It's just you haven't called it one.
That Iranian ship one worries me a lot. So Trump's post... let me get it here for you. So Trump did a post. The deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran is now complete. Congratulations to all. I hereby fully authorize the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and simultaneously herewith authorize the immediate removal of the U.S. naval blockade. Ships of the world, start your engine. Let the oil flow. And
Iran's saying the exact opposite. Nope, toll-free.
Yeah, he did say toll-free opening.
Yeah. No. Iran says they're paying a toll. Oman and Iran are going to be collecting tolls.
Unless they call it something else and he twists it into something else.
Yeah. He said, we said that they could do sort of a resort fee, put it in Las Vegas terms, which Donald Trump understands.
Yeah. That's actually an interesting point that he said that. There was a new Iran called off its planned retaliation strikes against Israel after Trump, through intermediaries, urged Iran to exercise restraint, according to the New York Times. There was internal debate within Iran's leadership over whether to respond to restore deterrence or avoid retaliation, with some arguing that a strike would play into Israel's effort to undermine the ongoing peace negotiations between Iran and US. That's a very good point. So I think they made the right decision to not strike. Because that would have fallen into Israel's hand. Israel wants them to strike because that allows Israel to retaliate. Mm-hmm. I think Iran definitely made the right decision in not striking. So I'm glad they did that. I'm trying to get more information on if there's more details. But Iran says there is a toll. Seeing if the Iranians responded to Trump's post of him saying toll free. All right, I'll go through some more updates. All right, so Pakistan has announced a peace deal between the US and Iran has been reached following intensive talks, with both sides declaring an immediate and permanent end to military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon. The official signing ceremony is scheduled for Friday, 19th. In Switzerland, Pakistan extended gratitude to Qatar for its mediation role, and to Saudi. By the way, the Qatari delegation is still in Iran right now, and Saudi and Turkey for their contribution to the agreement. Guess who's left out? The UAE, no thanks to them. Mediators will facilitate a series of pre-implementation meetings this week to lay the groundwork for technical talks ahead of the signing ceremony. Trump and Netanyahu had a call, and Trump, according to the Wall Street Journal, said this. Trump has stated that a deal with Iran is imminent and plans to issue a statement confirming it though Tehran has not yet confirmed its agreement. And he says, we'll get the nuclear dust later on when we're ready to go in and do it. I'd say over the next month or two. There's no rush. And he called it harmless, the nuclear dust harmless. As far as regime change, I never cared about regime change. This is the third group we've dealt with, and this is the most rational group yet. So I think everything's indicating, and then he says about the Bibi strike on Beirut, he says, Bibi shouldn't have done that. I didn't like it at all. They fired a couple of small missiles and missed their marks by a lot. They have to fire back, and he'll fire back, and then the whole thing never stops. In the Middle East, he says if Iran retaliates, he's talking about how it will never stop if Iran retaliates, and Bibi shouldn't have done that. And he says Bibi was okay with the deal with Iran. I'm sure that this is a lie. So that's on the back and forth there. Let me see what else we have. Okay, that's a regime change statement about him not caring for regime change, which just highlights that he's so done with this war. And I think when it comes to the removing of the enriched uranium, you'll say in the next couple of months, hoping that people will just completely forget in the next couple of months, which they will. And there's not going to be enriched uranium removed this year. If I had to guess, it will take longer than that. Right. Much longer for the enriched uranium to be removed.
Don't hold your breath on that one.
Yeah. Let me see what else we have. By the way, there's another piece of news. N12. So Israeli media reported that Israel conducted the strikes on Beirut today with the assumption that Iran would attack in response. It just bothered me reading this. They attacked assuming that Iran would retaliate. They knew Iran would retaliate. So that was the intention, was to seek retaliation from Iran, therefore sabotage the deal. So the goal from Israel from the beginning was to get a response from Iran, and that even if the deal's reached, the fact that Bibi did it makes you question how much influence Trump really has.
Well, let me tie in something else that really hasn't received much discussion. The last two strikes that Iran launched on U.S. military bases in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Jordan. And actually, the Prince Saud Air Base, that was hit. It hasn't gotten much reporting at all. They did significant damage that really has hurt the United States, and it's not being reported. So that's where we're sort of sitting in a situation where the United States keeps sort of burying his head in the sand and pretending, everything's great, couldn't possibly be better. When in fact the opposite is true.
Do you think they'll keep any of those bases in the region?
Well, they'll try, but it's just going to take a while to rebuild. And I'm not sure we got the money to do it. This is I think this really is heading towards the deconstruction of the U.S. Empire or hegemony. The United States sort of supplanted the Brits as the power in the Middle East. The Brits still keep hanging on, meddling a little bit here and there, but the United States had been the big power. And now Trump's the one making concessions, not Iran.
Well, there's Marin News just released clauses. They revealed the 14 clauses. Okay. That's according, so we have some clauses of the deal, according to Marin News. On the financial side, sanctions on Iranian oil, petrochemical products, and derivatives will be suspended, with full access restored to Iran's financial resources. Number one. Number two, crucially, $24 billion in frozen Iranian funds will be released during the 60-day final negotiating period, with half $12 billion made available to Iran before negotiations even begin. The US and its allies are also required to present reconstruction plans for Iran amounting to at least $300 billion. 3. The agreement calls for a permanent and immediate cessation of war on all fronts, including Lebanon, US commitment to non-interference in Iranian affairs and respect for its sovereignty, and the complete lifting of the naval blockade within 30 days. US forces are committed to withdrawing from around Iran, and the Strait of Hormuz will reopen within 30 days under Iranian arrangements. Okay, it doesn't talk about Israel pulling out of Lebanon. 4, the agreement includes a 60-day negotiating window to reach a final deal covering nuclear issues and the complete lifting of all sanctions. Iran reaffirms its NPT commitment to not produce nuclear weapons, while the US commits to not add forces to the region or impose new sanctions during the negotiation period. 5, a supervisory mechanism will oversee implementation, and any final agreement will be approved by the UN Security Council. Notably, Iran's missile program and support for the axis of resistance are definitely removed from the agenda. Final negotiations will not begin until the $12 billion is released, all sanctions are suspended, and the naval blockade is lifted. There's no mention of Israel pulling out of Lebanon.
And from Israel's standpoint, it should be. It's supposed to be there somewhere. Yeah, so Trump's got a lot of selling to do to convince some very reluctant members of Congress that this really is a swell deal. This is good news.
Yeah, I don't see anything about Israel pulling out of Lebanon, though, which I've always been that worried there. Because in my mind, Iran, their main strategic, strategic asset or strategic advantage is to have Hezbollah. That is their deterrent. That is their most important ally in the region in the axis of resistance. If Israel remains in Lebanon, but the bombing with Hezbollah stops, that, from a strategic perspective, is not that damaging to Iran. So that's why in my worry is Iran may not jeopardize the entire MOU to have Israel pull out of Lebanon. They'll try to achieve it, but they might achieve it later in the negotiations. And there's even, I was thinking about it this morning. Yeah, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this one. I was thinking about it this morning as well. There might be an argument to be made. I'm not making the argument. I'm saying it's an argument that one can make that Iran may even benefit from Israel being in Lebanon, because that keeps the reason, the raison d'être for Hezbollah to exist. So actually reinforces the importance of Hezbollah, which works in Iran's favor if Israel remains in Lebanon. So I don't think Iran has that much incentive for Israel to pull out. It does want it to pull out. It wants to win the hearts and minds of the Lebanese people and do what it believes is right. But at the same time, I don't think it's on top of their priority list with everything else they have to do with Strait of Hormuz, reconstruction, U.S. aggression, lifting of the American blockade, the relationship with the Gulf. There's all these things they have to sort, the nuclear program, that I worry that the Israel-Lebanon issue, beyond a ceasefire, even a ceasefire, I don't know if it will last. And I worry that not only the Americans, but both the Americans and the Iranians gradually over the next year just walk away from Lebanon. Lebanon goes back to what it was a year from now. That's my worry. I think Israel has made it quite clear tonight. It was ready to start. It was making preparations to strike Iran. And it looks like Iran has blinked.
that and so Iran's going to, Israel blinked. Iran's going to continue to put pressure and to monitor the situation, and to the extent that they don't comply, then we're off to a whole new situation.
Yeah, agree. Well, fingers crossed. Let me see one last statement as we wrap. Deputy Foreign Minister Garibabadi, some people who complain about the lack of concessions are frankly wrong, and they should know something. Practically, the amount of real commitments Iran has made in the MOU are minuscule compared to what the US has agreed to. Most of Iran's commitments will only be discussed later during the 60-day following the MOU signing. There's even pushbacks that we're going to see this as well. The same way we talk about political disagreements in the US, political disagreements in Israel, Netanyahu has to deal with issues Trump has to deal with. Iran have to deal with their own divisiveness internally. There's members of the Iranian government that might have been a lot more willing to keep the war going to get even more concessions. I think it's important to take that into consideration.
Yeah. Well, again, the Iranians are saying the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz doesn't happen until Friday. Trump said it happened tonight. So they got a 5-day difference there.
Yeah.
And even reopened, does that mean that Iran forgoes collecting tolls? No, they made it clear. They're going to collect tolls.
It's in the point plan they just announced. And it's history right there. Let me see where it is. Hold on. Just to be clear, the guy did mention when he went through the clauses, Larry, he did not say, he said he was upset. The Iran charging tolls was not in the MOU. I just want to make that clear. And let me see here what it says. In the point I just read, the 12 points, permanent immediate cessation of war on all fronts, including Lebanon, the U.S. commitment to non-interference in Iran's internal affairs and respect for the sovereignty of the Islamic Republic of Iran. That's according to Mehr News. Complete lifting of the naval blockade within 30 days. The U.S. commitments to withdraw its forces from around Iran, reopening the Strait of Hormuz within 30 days under Iranian arrangements. So this is the point. Under Iranian arrangements, it's vague. It doesn't say Iran can charge a fee. It's up for interpretation, and that is the issue that they might clash on later on.
Well, Iran's position on that is quite clear. They're going to collect fees.
Yeah.
And they're going to do so in Chinese yuan, not in American dollars, which then limits the amount of power, influence, pressure U.S. can bring to bear. Yeah.
And then the last one is the U.S. commitment to withdraw its forces from around Iran, reopening the Strait of Hormuz under Iranian arrangements, suspension of sanctions on the sale of oil, petrochemical products and derivatives, and full access of Iran to its financial resources. 7 out of 14, 7. The necessity for the U.S. and its allies to present reconstruction plans for Iran amounting to at least $300 billion. You think they'll ever come up with that? You think there'll ever be a plan of $300 billion?
Well, it's just it's coming from seized Iranian assets. That's all.
300 billion. Seized Iranian assets like 120. That would include something. They have to come up with more money from that, unless it's from the Strait of Hormuz fees, maybe.
Yeah, maybe the fees for Jared Kushner and a little something there for us, a little something.
That's number 7. Number 8 out of 14. 60 days of negotiations to reach a final agreement based on nuclear issues and the complete lifting of primary, secondary U.S. sanctions and U.S. Security Council and IAEA board and governor resolutions. So that's negotiating for that. So that's just a promise to get that solution, which that will take a couple of years. Number 9, reiteration of Iran's commitment under the NPT treaty to not produce nuclear weapons. Big concession. Larry, Iran has committed under the NPT not to produce nuclear weapons.
Well, no, I mean, that's been its position for the last 30 years, right?
I know. Yeah. I'm just being facetious. So that's a big win for the Americans. I'm not that bad, Larry. I saw you got worried for a bit.
No,
should I pop Larry's bubble? So that's number 7. Number 8. Number 10 out of 14. During the negotiating period, the U.S. has committed not to add forces in the region and not to impose new sanctions. What do you mean add forces to the region? There's barely any forces left to add. Number 11, release of...
I just could say they've lost a lot of air assets. Whether they can find them to replace them is a whole nother issue too. The U.S. has lost.
Didn't they replace them from European forces already in the ceasefire period? We saw all that movement.
There was some, but I'm not sure how far it's gone. So
fair point. Release of $24 billion of Iran's blocked funds during the 60-day final negotiating period. Half of it must be available before Iran starts the negotiations. 12, the supervisory mechanism. 13, the final agreement will be approved by the UN Security Council. And 14, final negotiations will not begin before the release of half of Iran's blocked funds, suspension of Iran's oil sanctions, and lifting the naval blockade. And the final agreement will only cover the fate of enriched materials and enrichment, lifting the sanctions, and Iran's economic reconstruction plans. Discussions about Iran's missile program and support for resistance groups are definitively removed from the agenda. Reading this, what I just realized, this literally means walking away and leaving things as they are and giving $24 billion, nothing else. Yeah. So the US just gave him $24 billion, the US and other countries, depending who's unfreezing the assets, gave them $24 billion, a ceasefire on Lebanon, Iran charges a fee, and that's it.
Yeah.
The things that Trump was saying a couple of months ago that won't happen have just happened. So there's the deal. This is it.
So let's not, again, it'd be one thing if they announced we are meeting in 2 hours in Geneva to have a virtual signing and both sides released the document that they're going to sign. If they were doing that tonight, I'd say, okay, they actually do have a deal and they're implementing it starting tonight. But they're not doing that. So what we have is the promise of a deal that may be signed on Friday, that, yes, the Pakistanis are, joyful over this. Oh, boy, we brokered a deal. But I think you still see enough hesitancy on elements in Iran and in Israel that are like, this is stupid. We're not going to, this is a waste of our time. We're not going to get anything out of this.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But at least we've seen something positive from the Iranians for the first time. So let's see what happens on the Israeli front. I haven't seen any bombings in South Lebanon, so that's what I was thinking. I'm going to keep an eye out on my news feed to see if we get any reports of bombings in South Lebanon, because that will be a step too far. I understand they bombed Beirut on the day of the peace deal, but to bomb Lebanon after both sides announced the deal and the mediators announced the deal and everyone's congratulating them, to bomb even Lebanon, South Lebanon now, then we already have a problem, but we have a very significant problem. Then that will be more concerning than the strike on Dahiya earlier today. So fingers crossed we don't hear about even one strike in South Lebanon. Now, I understand the ceasefire could be imperfect on night one, so maybe I'll let it slip today. I don't know if the Iranians will, but tomorrow, if we hear any reports of strikes tomorrow on South Lebanon, then we may have a showdown between Trump and Netanyahu. But let's just hope that doesn't happen.
Well, hey, it's look at the bright side. It's certainly giving you something to talk about.
Always does. Larry, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for jumping on.
All right, my friend. We'll just, like I said, let's, as soon as we get a document and with both sides agree that that's the document, then I think you can say, okay, the light at the end of the tunnel is, we're seeing it, and it's not an onrushing train.
We get to say that. It's not an onrushing train. Where do you get those quotes from? The light is on the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train heading your way.
Yeah, you live as old as I am right now. You pick this stuff up along the way.
And then, probably tomorrow we'll probably need to talk about Ukraine, because as we're speaking, Patriot launches followed by ballistic missile strikes in Kiev. Thousands of people left with that. 14,000 residents in northern Kiev, as we're speaking, are without electricity and power lines that just came in. And there's scenes of a combined missile and drone attack on Kiev. Several fires can be observed throughout Ukrainian capital. So while we get a deal in the Middle East, Kiev is on fire. Massive attack right now happening. Russians aren't letting up, and they've made good progress in Donetsk. Konstantinovka is, it's essentially fallen. Yeah, it's not looking good on that front. They had a call today, by the way, Trump and Putin. Not sure if you saw. I read it.
Yeah. Yeah, Putin called to wish him happy birthday.
Oh, really? I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah. No, I'm serious. You know, that was part of his, hey, happy birthday, old man. You know, maybe he sang, you know, the happy birthday song in Russian or in Spanish, Feliz cumpleaños a ti.
Imagine he calls him singing happy birthday. I swear I would never imagine how these calls go. Larry, thank you so much.
All right, brother. We'll see you later.
See you soon.
Bye.
Thanks.